DJ Event Planner will change the way you manage and run your business. Streamline all of your procedures and software into one easy-to-manage system. DJ Event Planner, the ultimate online planning tool. Tonight's DJNTV show is sponsored in part by Electro Voice, DJ Event Planner, ADJ, NLFX Professional, Promo Only, and DJNTV Insiders.
Hey everyone! You think the listeners heard that?
Yeah, no, they didn't hear the countdown either. That ended.
Hey everyone! Welcome to another installment of Ron Ruth Presents here on DJNTV. I'm Ron Ruth, your host with the Ron Ruth Experience. And I am so happy tonight to introduce you to my very special guest, this certified Profit First professional and my good friend, Jason Spencer, all the way from Sacramento. Hey, Jason, how are you?
I am great, Ron. How about yourself?
Can't really complain, man. You are like in a really hot zone for real, aren't you, right now? You got wildfires going on all around you.
Yeah, wildfires everywhere, 100 degrees every day, smoky outside. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, that's
California.
California. 100-degree days in Sacramento, though?
Oh, yeah. It was 108 last week.
Wow.
Yep.
I should move to the Midwest. We finally got a cool spell now, about 70 some odd degrees. But anyway, people are really happy when I start out with the weather. Let's talk more about the weather. So Jason, tell me a little bit about, tell the viewers a little bit about Profit First. I remember seeing the presentation a couple years ago at Armed DJs, and I was extraordinarily impressed, not just with the Profit First program, but with your presentation style as well. What can you tell everyone about Profit First and why it's so important that they should know about it?
Well, the idea behind Profit First is that you're not living paycheck to paycheck. So many of us, somewhere along our career, I mean, hopefully many of us have moved on from that, but many of us have gotten to that point where we just look for the next big client to pay whatever's on the bill that week. And so Profit First helps you start stacking money. It's kind of a cash management system, if you will. It doesn't replace accounting. It doesn't replace your bookkeeper, but it works on top of that. It's a layer in between all of your bank accounts and your finances. And so by taking, as it says, Profit First, you are essentially setting aside money to be a profitable company, regardless of what your financial status is. But you're also allowing yourself to pay yourself, you pay your taxes, and then you worry about running your business. And so you take those elements out first and you kind of squeeze the money that you have. And believe it or not, due to something called Parkinson's law, everybody will work within those confines. If you have more money, you're going to find a way to spend all that more money. If you have a little bit money, you're going to find a way to work within that little bit of money. And so that's the big, broad 30-second version of Profit First.
So where did Profit First come from? I mean, what's the origins of Profit First?
So I will let you in on a little secret. The book itself, which I have over my shoulder here, written by Mike McAllowitz, fantastic entrepreneurial author, but even he will admit, and I think he does in the book, somewhere in the book, it's in there, it's the envelope system. So our grandparents pretty much used the envelope system. They'd get money every month or every week. They'd stash it aside. This is for our bills. This is for the house. This is for food. This is for fun. That's basically what we're doing. We're just applying that principle to your business. So people that are familiar with Dave Ramsey's system is very much the same concept. Ramsey, of course, deals with personal finances. We're dealing with your business.
So what prompted you to get so deeply involved in this rather than just being a participant in the system? What made you want to actually become an advocate for the system?
You know, what's funny is I started as a participant in the system. I've known the author for a few years before Profit First came out as a book. And he had introduced me to it, and I had already been using it on a funky level. I wasn't fully dived in how the book is written, but I was using it to some success until I got the book, and then I used it to wild success. And that's when you said you saw me at Armed DJs. That was the very first time I ever presented on Profit First. And I just talked to Robbie. I said, hey, I want to do this. He said, okay. And came out, did it. Did not expect the reaction I got. You were there. Mike Walter was sitting in the front row, jumped up at the end of that presentation and said, I want to buy a book from you. I'm like, it's not even my book, but I got them. So here you go. From that point, I knew I had something. And so I went back to Mike, the author, Mike Michalowicz. And I said, what can I do to really champion this for you? Because I'm obviously connected with the DJs, with some of the wedding professionals out there. I spoke at Wedding MBA. How can I make this so that they believe me and understand this is something they can use? And he said, well, let's certify you. So that's why when you introduced me as a certified Profit First professional, I have been for almost 4 years now, pretty much since the first year the book came out. And I just keep shouting it from the rooftops. Some people believe me that it works. Some people don't believe it works. Those that have tried it know that it works. And I can't. Well, yeah, go ahead.
That brings me to my next question: is do you have any success stories that you can share of people that have gone through the system and have found greater success than most?
Well, those that regularly watch, of course, know Mike Walter. He's done it on his own as a DIY. I didn't work with him on implementation beyond him seeing my presentation and getting him a book.
Right.
Other individuals like Mitch Taylor. I've worked one-on-one with Mitch, and within the first year, he had tripled the amount of money that was sitting in his bank. Actually, in 9 months, he had triple the amount of money sitting in his bank than he did those 9 months prior, where, again, with Parkinson's law, we would normally go off and just spend all that money. But with the system, he had found a way to keep it in these envelopes, if you will, but in each individual bank account. And it was there for its purpose, not just to be spent, but for its purpose, whether that was for taxes, paying himself, taking care of the business, any of those reasons. They have their own little bucket, their own little envelope that it goes into. And all of us get caught in that situation of, if I got $100, I'll find a way to spend $100. But if I can break $100 up and identify what each of those dollars do in my business or for myself, then that's where they'll go. That's where that money will go. So it's a crazy success story. Many people will actually double or even triple their profit if they put it in motion for 12 months.
So tell me a little bit. You've mentioned Parkinson's law a couple of times now. What is that?
Oh my gosh, Parkinson's law. So it's actually a concept. It's a theory, if you will, but we still call it a law. Developed by C. Northcote Parkinson. It's a researcher that found people basically will use the amount of resource they have. They'll use it to the limit. The more money we have sitting in our bank account, the more money we're going to spend. The less money we have in the bank account, the less money we're going to spend. However, we will always find a way to work within those confines. The way I really like to relate it to DJs is, think of back in the day for us older DJs that have been doing this 20 plus years. We were carrying around vinyl. We were carrying around CDs. Some people carrying around 8 tracks. I don't know. But you were limited to what you could carry with you. That was your limit. That was Parkinson's law would say, this is the limit of what you can carry. Right. Then hard drives and MP3s came out, right? So we started with 100 gig hard drive, 500 gig hard drive. Now we have 4, 5, 8 terabyte hard drives. The sky is almost the limit when it comes to music and videos. And I can guarantee you, most people that do not rein in what they're doing on that music have more crap than they know what to do with. I'm one of those people. I have so much room on my hard drive. I just drag it over from promo only and go, okay, I'll deal with it later. If I don't need it today, I'll probably need it another day. It's okay if it sits there. So that's kind of a description of Parkinson's laws. The more you have, the more you're going to use it. Whereas back in the day, I would have looked at 90% of those tracks I get from someone like promo only and said, I don't need these. I'm going to set them aside.
Well, and storage has gotten, drastic. For people that have just come into this industry. I remember a blank CD, you could only buy one brand. I think it was Sony, and one blank CD was like $5.
Yep.
And Overrun would destroy a CD and it cost you you go through 10 CDs to finally get the one that actually recorded, because you had to shut down every background program that was going on in order to get that one. So, but storage today has gotten, it really is cheap. You just keep
and even I don't know if you remember in the early days, the standalone recorders, you had to have a specific one that could use those CDs too.
Pioneer. I had a Pioneer.
Yep.
Yeah, but we figured out a way around it so that you could actually trick it into thinking that it was recording a Pioneer.
We all figured that part out.
Yeah. I hope there was nothing illegal about that, because if there was, I just shared it with the world. So there you go.
You're okay. I used to work at Tower Records, and I was actually their Blink media buyer, so I knew all those prices intimately. To be honest, that $5 that you paid for it, Tower paid about $4.50 for it. They did not make any money on that.
I can appreciate that. So how did you go about becoming? Explain the certification process. How did that work?
Well, so there are actually about 300 certified Profit First professionals worldwide, most of them here in the US, but we do have them out in Australia, UK, Ireland, many in Germany, Austria. And we basically sit down with Mike, the author of the book, and his team at Profit First headquarters, which is in New Jersey. They're in Morristown, New Jersey, right in downtown. And we go through a stringent training process that lasts about 6 to 9 months, depending on how involved you are with it. Every quarter, we do follow up with our own coaches there. Actually, every month we follow up with our coaches, but every quarter, which is how the system is kind of based, we check in with them and they go through our business just as I would go through yours if you were working one-on-one with me. Mm-hmm. So we're always refining the process. We're finding little nooks and crannies where the numbers you would pull out of the book might be different for an industry like ours. Many of the Profit First professionals are certified, but they're also niche certified. So they deal with a specific niche clientele. Just like many of us might deal with weddings only or corporates only or schools only or more specialized in them, I guess. I specialize in wedding and event pros. We have people that specialize in restaurants. We have people that specialize in dog washers. I mean, it's surprising how fine-tuned some of these people get. But that process is always a reiteration. Every year we have our own conference that we go to. So we all gather in New Jersey, actually, right there down the street from our headquarters. And we go through 2 to 3 days of just powwow and learning and applying those concepts. And it's very much a workshop and a seminar environment. But yeah, it's there's an investment on my end too. So
you take, but you've taken what you've learned now, and you have turned that into a consulting business of your own.
Yes, that's where Profithood Academy comes from. So I am licensed to use all the Profit First content, but then Profithood Academy is applying it to wedding and event professionals.
So let's assume for a moment that I come to you and I say, "Hey, Jason, I want to, I really want to get into the Profit First program, and I want to do it right, and I want to turn to you as my coach, as my mentor in this regard." Take me through the process. What are some of the steps we're going to go through over the next few weeks?
Well, the first thing I do is I say, "You're on, Ruth. You don't need my help." That's the first thing.
Yeah.
Or you won't listen to my help.
I have a very frugal wife.
You and I are good friends. I can say that to you. But no, seriously, what happens is we'll come into the process, and in the first week or two, we'll break down your finances. So I'll pull 2 to 5 years even of your past financials, plus your personal tax returns, because we do rely heavily on owner tax returns in addition to the business tax returns.
Right.
And then we break those numbers down and we actually put them in those categories. We see where your money is going. Are you profitable? Are you paying taxes? Are you saving for taxes? Or are you just finding the money at the last minute? Are you paying yourself? Do you pay yourself a regular salary, a percentage of everything that comes in? How are you doing that? And then expense-wise, where are you spending money? Are you overspending on music? Are you just buying the new gadget every single week? Could you not do that every week? So then we'll look at where you can chop things out. We find that most businesses, just by glancing over expenses, can trim anywhere from 7 to 10% of that dollar amount out and save that money and put it to good use somewhere else, whether that's paying themselves because they're not paying themselves regularly, saving for taxes, or saving profit.
So I am that guy that likes to, I find the next little trinket of that little toy that I want. It's not necessarily.
I do too. Don't worry, Rob.
Yeah. So what happens? I mean, do you pretty much like put me on an allowance that says, hey, you're not going to be able to do that, or maybe you have to save over a period of time to do that, or how does that
Both of those, actually. Yeah, it's a combination of the two. We tell you this is the amount of money you have to work with, so work within those confines. Again, going back to Parkinson's law. Then, if there's something you want, the Evolve 50s are hot right now. The white ones just came out. Maybe I want to go out and get a pair of those. I know that's going to run me approximately $3,000. So now I can look at that and say, when do I need it by? Is the current set of equipment I'm using working, or does it need to be replaced? And then I can just patch that out. I can say 6 months from now, I need to be able to save $3,000. Divide that by however many times I'm doing an allocation. We usually recommend twice a month. I know people that do it once a week. And you just, from each one of those allocations into all those accounts, you're pulling money out and you're saving it and you're setting it aside. And then if you've set that goal correctly, at the end of X months, you should be able to purchase those speakers outright without having to take out a loan or a credit card or anything like that.
That's awesome. Before I get into the next question, I want to let viewers know, if you're watching us live, we are on YouTube and Facebook. We're keeping an eye on the chat on YouTube. So if you have a question you want to ask of Jason or of me, please just go ahead and go on to the YouTube channel, and you'll be able to just log into the chat and feel free to go ahead and ask us any questions you'd like to ask. So really what you're talking about, though, is there is no kind of, I started doing customer experience consultation, and kind of what I hear you saying is kind of the same thing I say. At least I think I'm right. This is that as you're a coach, you're not
Absolutely.
going to be able to wave a magic wand and then suddenly my bank account is going to fill. Are you?
No. There's no magic pill. You don't just pop something and tomorrow wake up and suddenly your financial issues have gone away. But I think you can almost equate it to various other things in life. Riding a bike, you probably didn't just hop up on a bike and ride it right away. You might have had training wheels along the way. Consider me your training wheels if you need to.
Right.
There are various things that happen along the way as you grow your business and as you make that business profitable if you weren't already. And even if you are already, usually we can boost that profitability in the business. So maybe you're already running 10, 15% profit. Our goal coaching with you is to get you further on that. So maybe you're at 20 or 25% profit. And that probably means you're running a very lean business at the same time. DJs and wedding professionals in particular tend to overspend either because they buy too many gadgets, or if they have staff, they're usually paying their staff too much. We're kind of a by event type of deal. We're not necessarily getting events every single day of the week. So we're working on the weekend time frame. We're even working seasonal. So we may have a big influx of money at one point in the year, and then it just tapers off for the rest of the year. So we find ways to put controls around all of that and make it last those full 12 months for you.
So with your certification, can you give tax advice?
I do not give tax advice. I give tax suggestions, but I am not a
pay
CPA.
them.
I'm not a
Suggestion number one: pay your taxes.
Pay your taxes. That is suggestion number one. Yes, but we do have the tax account that's built into Profit First, so we actually will help you save for that, so that when you do take your finances, your books to a bookkeeper, CPA, and they tell you your bill is $10,000 for this quarter, you have $10,000 sitting in the bank. You just go, okay, here's your check, and you walk off. And you smile and you're not freaking out as you walk out the door.
And then you find a different accountant if you're paying $10,000.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So how often, again, I'm that guy that came to you and you've been, you helped me get started. How often do we get together to talk more about my finances? Is this just like a one-shot thing? Then if I need help, I call you back, or is there a regular program to this?
It's a regular program. We recommend 6 months to actually get the hang of the program, and then 12 months to really see the full scale plan. Some people are rolled out over 18 months, just depends on where they are financially. But in the first month and a half, 2 months, it's pretty much a hand-holding situation. So we go through that 1 to 2 weeks of analyzing everything. I come back with a report. It lays out the entire plan for the next year or so. And then at that point, it's either a once a month check-in or once a quarter check-in, just depends on how you decided to work with us. But we do recommend at least 6 months, because you're going to see this part at the beginning where you're going to go, this is great. And then you're going to get to this point where we've tightened everything down. You're going to be like, this sucks. And then right around month 6, it starts to level out on you. And so that ebb and flow goes away and you start to level out.
There's a true commitment to this. I mean,
absolutely.
It's like I said earlier, there's no magic wand, but you have to have a mindset of, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make it happen, and know that in the end, that the end result is going to be something that's going to be very beneficial to you, especially if you start thinking about retirement, which we'll talk about that in a moment. I've got a question for you from one of our viewers. He wants to know, when do you know is the right time to upgrade equipment, since new mixers, speakers, mics, etc. come up almost every other month? It's tough to resist, is what it is.
It's very tough to resist. And again, I've been doing this 24 years now. And I think back to the mid 90s when I got started, there was a lot out there, but not like there is now. I mean, right. I used the same, I think we had Eevee and Serwin Vega. Those were the two things we used for years. And they lasted for years, and they probably still work today. I don't know, whoever we sold them to probably still using them. But then you started getting where things were coming out every 9 to 12 months. You would get something new that would pop up, and that's where a lot of us got in trouble, because every year we felt like we did need to buy something new. And so what I do is I take a step back, and it's where working with a coach really comes in handy. And you can probably attest to this too, Ron, is the coach is there to remove the emotion from the process. Buying and selling is very much an emotional process. I think the percentage that I've seen out there is 90-10, right? So it's 90% emotional, 10% logic. So the coach brings more logic into the decision making.
Right.
And the way I look at it is, unless there's a reason to upgrade, if it's working, don't upgrade. I have laptops. I'm a DJ Trivia affiliate here in Sacramento, and we have laptops from 2009 that are still working. They run the software, they do the job. I have no reason to upgrade them. I might upgrade some small particulars like a new hard drive, just make sure that's running fresh, but otherwise the laptop does not need to be touched.
Especially if you're not running music programs where you have to worry, and at a party where you have to worry about it crashing. I mean, it's a whole lot different than...
It's a little... I mean, certainly that's where it comes in. Do I need to or do I not? Is your equipment working today? Was it working yesterday? Was it working the day before that? Keep going. Now, that's where you can look at new features that come out in certain software or certain hardware and say, will this make my job better? Is there an efficiency factor to this that will increase my business and let me grow? That's where you can start looking at, okay, maybe I can upgrade, maybe I can replace and offset the cost. I can sell what I already have. That's where you can work into some of those numbers.
Well, and as you said, I mean, there's all sorts of new toys with photo booths. I mean, how the variety of photo booths that are available to DJs today. The uplighting is another one of those monogram projectors. All the stuff that goes into the programs that go into doing those kind of monograms. I mean, one thing that you have to be certain of is that you're going to have an income stream to support whatever it is that you're going to be doing. I mean,
right.
If you're not getting a personal opinion,
let me ask you something, Ron. Let me give you a slight different angle to look at this. You probably use Adobe Audition for a lot of things, correct?
Sure.
In your love stories and things that you do, I'm sure
correct.
You. Could I do that with Cool Edit Pro?
Absolutely, if it'll run on, well, whatever machine you have it on. But right now, Cool Edit Pro won't run on Windows 10. But
it won't run on Windows 10. But let's say,
if you have an old computer with XP or even Windows 8, I would imagine it would run.
Yeah. And so I could do that in my home studio, export the file out to my actual live performance machine.
Right.
And I didn't have to buy Audition or anything else to offset that. Now, I'm not saying that Audition doesn't have a lot of new quirks and features that make it so much easier, but that is one way to look at those decisions is, do I have something in place that already does it and is not going to make me break the bank to upgrade to something else?
Absolutely. Well, and as you know, there's just, again, to me, it's also important that if you're going to invest in something like uplighting or photo booths or something like that, you need to have some assurance that you're going to have a revenue stream that's going to support it, and it's something that you really want to invest in, that you're going to work for it. I mean, as an example, years ago when karaoke first came out and it was very popular, I just made a conscious decision. This is not something it's not something I personally wanted to get involved in. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying, for me, it wasn't my cup of tea. It's just not something I chose to get involved in. So why buy into it and invest all the money and the software and everything to make it work for something I wasn't even going to really pursue that much. So I know that you also have we have more. Say the questioner says probably a good idea to go ahead and buy quality gear in the first place instead of low end, which that would be, if you can afford it. Yes,
absolutely. If you can afford it, and I think the afford is the part. I mean, we all want to drive the Bentleys and the Ferraris, but maybe we're more in a mid-range class. Definitely work within your means, but don't just go for the 5-cent deal because it's there. Definitely do your homework, do your research on it. Is it going to be something that'll last you for a while?
Absolutely. So you have a group site on Facebook called Profit First for Event Pros. Is that right? I don't have
that correct.
Right
that
now.
Is correct.
Oh, there it is. And anybody can join, and it's a great place to get coaching. What all do you discuss on that page?
So it's an old group, but it's a new group. We used to have it as a private group that was there when we were going through smaller group coaching sessions. So we had some programs that people could come into, and we would kind of do a quick start for Profit First. Mm-hmm. And we've actually decided to go ahead and open that back up and make it available to everybody to come in, and they can ask their Profit First questions. So if you've read the book, if you've listened to the audiobook, if you've even just seen a presentation and you have some questions on it, come in, ask them. I'm in there. So you have a certified pro in there, but you also have other people that are working through the process. Everybody has the same questions. You don't have to share your personal numbers in there. There's no reason to do that unless you feel you want to, but you can come in and you can say, hey, you talked about this tax account. Am I supposed to pay? And let's say I'm an S Corp and I take an employee salary. So do I pay my taxes out of that? Do I reimburse myself? We will answer all those kinds of questions. If we get to a point where it needs to be more of a one-on-one conversation, then we'll definitely set up something like that. But for the most part, many of these questions are broad enough that everybody will benefit from seeing them in there. So that was the idea, is we would open it back up, let everybody come in and just ask their questions, and we'll answer them as we go along.
So I was reminded of a question I was going to ask you before I asked the other question
Sure.
from our viewer about retirement, because in this industry, we don't really think about that. Like, I'm getting close right now to not DJing anymore. I'm going to stay in the industry as a consultant, but retirement is one of those things that very few, especially small business owners that have never really run businesses before, really have no concept of. How can you touch on retirement a little bit and maybe give a couple of tips of things that people might start thinking about doing today to save for that day?
Yeah, well,
it is going to come.
Again, legally, I would say consult a financial advisor.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry.
I got to throw that part out there. No, that's okay. I got to throw that part out there. But with the Profit First system, definitely working into the profit side of the account, right, and even the owner pay portions of the accounts, you can factor those into those percentages. You can say, let's say you're paying yourself 50% of an event, you can add an additional 5% in there, or take 5% out, and that remaining 5% then goes to IRA accounts or somewhere else that you're saving for retirement. And it's really just setting up another envelope or another bucket within the system. Many people look at the surface of the book, which is essentially 5 accounts. You have where all your money comes in, the income account, profit, taxes, owner pay, and expenses. But many of us, as we get a little bit deeper, we do advanced accounts. And I know some businesses that actually operate on 18 different accounts or envelopes, if you will. And one of them is retirement. One of them is saving for those big investments down the road. You probably know at some point you want to replace your laptop every 2 or 3 years. So then you actually will factor that in. There's an account to save for those kinds of things. Rainy day funds, all kinds of stuff that you can do with it as you get more advanced. But probably a little bit deeper than this conversation today.
So and it's something that we'll talk a little bit about how to get a hold of you as a consultant, because then people could ask you, go into a deep dive on that. You touched on earlier in our conversation. I'm sorry, I keep coming up with questions that all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute.
Okay, we're never going to get to the education portion of this discussion today, but that's okay. We'll just have to do it again.
So you touched a little bit on, at the very beginning of our conversation, you talked a little bit about whether you pay yourself as a percentage, whether you pay yourself a flat salary. Can you address that? I mean, what do you think that what advice can you give? What do you think is the best, most efficient way to pay yourself? Or do you have a
it's interesting. I may have misspoke earlier and confused a few words in there. I would say the answer is actually both. And let me try and make it as simple as possible. So you would save into that envelope, that owner's pay envelope or bank account, a percentage of your event. So if you have $1,000 event and you're going to say owner's pay is 50%. Remember I said we analyze all of the finances.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So we're going to take those, whatever that 12-month average should be, and make percentages out of it. So I might save 50%, $500 into that account, but maybe I'm only paying myself $400. So that extra 100 is going to sit in there. So when I get to my off season and I'm only able to put $800 in there, well, now I only have 400 in there, but I can still take 500 and do something with that, because it's really what's added up to. So it's a way of saying I'm using a percent of the event to save, but I'm still going to pay myself a regular price, a regular salary every other week, every month, however you want to pay yourself. But the idea is over time, that account has accrued enough money that you can handle that, whether you're running 2 months without booking an event or slamming out events left and right for a month. Does not matter. You're still going to take a set number to pay yourself, but you're saving a percentage into there every single time. And then each quarter we would adjust those numbers. So let's say after a year we look at it and you have excess money or not enough money to pay yourself. That's where we make adjustments.
See, I need you as a coach right now, because this weekend in Missouri, where I live, is a tax-free holiday. So it means I can go buy all sorts of technology and not have to pay sales tax on any of it. And it's that very tempting thing of, God, you were talking about laptops a minute ago. Do I really need a new laptop? But I can save, a tremendous amount of money if I buy
laptops, there are other ways around that. I mean, I'm a Mac user, and there are websites out there. I don't necessarily want to plug anybody, but there are ones that I go to purposely to purchase secondhand laptops. So I don't go out and purchase this year's MacBook at $2,300. I go out and buy one that's 2 or 3 years old. It does everything I need it to do. I'm running videos and everything else on a 15-inch MacBook Pro, and it cost me less than $1,000 for that MacBook. And it does what I need it to do for DJ purposes. Now, if I'm doing something more production style in my office, I might want something a little bit more. But for the actual DJ purposes, it does exactly what I need to do, and I didn't have to spend 2 to 3 times as much money.
So, Jason, before we move on to another topic here, what's the easiest way for people to get a hold of you? And actually, how do they get the book? What's going to be the easiest way for them to get their hands on the book?
Honestly, just go to either ProfitHoodAcademy.com or find Profit Hood Academy on Facebook, and you'll find all my contact info there. You can always email me, jason@ProfitHoodAcademy.com. But the book itself, Profit First, you can find it on Amazon. There's links on all the sites you can find me, though, too, for it.
Now, did I hear you say that are you doing an interview with the author coming up sometime soon?
I am not. However, I think John might be. Mike will be the end of, is it August yet? The end of August.
Tomorrow.
So tomorrow will be August. So the end of August, I think it's the 27th. Mike McCallowitz will actually be on DJNTV, and then he's actually going to be in the Insiders group as well, doing a little bit of a coaching session inside of the Insiders group. So if you're not a member of that, you'll definitely want to be a member of Insiders by the end of August, because I can guarantee you Mike's delivery style and his presentation style is phenomenal. He has a new book coming out, so I know that's part of the interview that'll be on the regular side of things, but on the behind the scenes and going over into Insiders, it'll be a whole different ballgame.
So I heard you talking a little bit earlier about you're doing trivia now, right?
I am.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Tell me, that's kind of you've only been doing that for a short period of time. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I've known the owners of DJ Trivia since 2010. The first time I spoke live was on the Mobile Beat Tour, and spent 5 cities with those guys, got to know them really well. And every year they push me and say, join, join, join. And last year at Arm DJs, I was talking with David Wyatt, one of the owners, and he finally convinced me to pull the trigger. We got everything ramped up over a few months, and finally started with my first venue in January. And we've grown it to 6 games a week right now. We actually have about 3 or 4 that are getting ready to come on board. I have a few hosts that are working with me, and going back to the retirement side of things, this was part of my retirement. It's ultimately a passive income side of things for me. I don't necessarily have to be hands-on with it. I can train people to download games, to program music, to go out and do them. It doesn't take a lot of money to put them in play. And then on the back end, there's a few other things that allow money to come in to me, and those go into retirement and so forth for me as well. So this was a long-term thought process for me, not because it took me 8 years to figure it out, but because my hope is in 8 years, I'm one of the top performing DJ trivia companies out there. And that is building my retirement essentially and paying my bills. And if I wanted to even walk away from coaching and doing weddings, I could. I'll probably still do them for quite some time, but it is essentially a passive income stream for me at some point.
So did you say you're doing 8 of these a week now?
Right now we're at 6. Sunday through Thursday. We have 2 games on a Wednesday. I do have additional hosts that work for me as well, so they go out and do most of these. I only do 2 right now myself. So,
are they all bars, or where are they?
Most of them are restaurants. We, depending on where you're located, I know some people that are in other areas that are 21 and up establishments. All of ours are family friendly restaurants. Some have a more dive bar feel to them, but they're all restaurants of some kind. One of the ways I decided to approach it was I've been attacking new businesses, actually. So restaurants and bars that have been open less than a year, and they're still struggling to find their feet or get people in the door. And in many of those cases, DJ Trivia has been that catalyst for them. So they would have 1 or 2 people on a Wednesday night coming through the door, and now they have 60, 70 people that are in there for 2 hours playing a game, buying food, buying drinks, and generating revenue for them. And that's overflowed to other nights for them too. So people have discovered them through trivia, and they come back on a regular weekly basis, and it's kind of a win-win for both of us.
So do you own like a rights to a specific territory?
Yes. So DJ Trivia is affiliate based. We buy the rights to a metro area based on population. And so Sacramento is my region. And there's my closest next 2 neighbors would be Reno and then Sonoma County. So 1.5 hours in either direction, basically.
So you could even go to San Francisco if you wanted to.
I could, but that's a much different population. So, but I could, yes, absolutely. There's nobody out there right now.
Awesome. So something that most of the viewers probably have no idea that about us is that we are both Disney. We are both Disney geeks.
Yes.
You and I actually ran into each other last year at Disney World, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Epcot. Your wife. We were at Epcot, yeah.
We had a great time. We didn't get to spend nearly as much time together because when you're at Disney World, everybody's got their own little thing to go do. So we kind of split up. But it took us like almost the entire vacation,
entire week, yeah.
So to finally catch up with each other, which kind of it's going to be an awkward segue into where I'm going with this. But
I'm waiting to see where you're going.
You and I have been talking a great deal about the Disney Institute, and so much of the things that you can learn from. I think it's funny because I was thinking about this before our conversation this evening, is that I listened to I just recently listened to a speech given by a member of the National Speakers Association. He was a closing speaker at Influence last year in 2017. And he talks about going outside of your industry to learn so that you can bring that into your industry. And I think what happens so much with us as DJs is that I think so many people kind of just focus on the DJ industry and what they can learn from that. Whereas I can tell you, and I'm sure you can attest to it as well, stepping outside of the industry, doing things like, for me, it's improvisation. I love improv theater, and it's become an addiction for me. But it has most definitely helped me in so many different areas of my business.
I think every entertainer should at least take a class, if nothing else.
Well, and if not that, I mean, a comedy class, a stand-up comedy class, or just anything that takes you to a different place, because creativity, which is a great part of what we do in business and what we do, comes from knowledge, and that knowledge is not just from performance workshops or from DJ sales workshops or from whatever that's specific to the DJ industry. I think it's so easy for us to just take ourselves too seriously and don't want to go out there and expand. And I can't think of anything that you're going to learn that's going to let me rephrase that. I can't think of anything that you're going to learn that's going to hurt you.
Fair enough.
Knowledge is everywhere, and that's why. What does this have to do with the Disney Institute? Really nothing.
Nothing. And I'm not going to go pulling my binder out because yours is.
I have mine. I also have my hat because I graduated.
I'm going to pull it out. There we go. There's the binder. See? Disney Institute.
Do you have one of these?
It's somewhere. I don't know. I'm not going to dig that out. We'll get another one. You and I will go. Well, I can't get it back in this place. You and I will go together. We'll recruit a whole bunch of DJs to go with us. Everybody just comment over there. We'll figure out who's going with us. It's not cheap, but
no, and that's the whole point is that a lot of the best knowledge that you're going to get is not it requires an investment in yourself. You have to be willing. It's not going to always be $200. And I want to say because you and I had this conversation offline not long ago about, just because a DJ doesn't go to a conference or a DJ doesn't buy into something does not mean that they are a cheap DJ. They don't automatically earn the title of cheap.
No.
I was talking about influence a few moments ago. I recently joined the National Speakers Association, which in and of itself, just for the national dues and the local dues, is not a cheap process. As a matter of fact, as my Profit First coach, you would have said, "Are you sure you really need to be joining that now?" But I did it anyway. And if I wanted to go to, I so desperately wanted to go to the National Speakers Association conference, which was just a couple of weeks ago. But you're talking into the thousands of dollars to attend that conference. I didn't attend not because I'm cheap. It's just at this moment, I can't afford to do that, especially having just paid dues for NSA, local and national chapter. That's a sizable chunk of change. And I was just about ready to become a bellboy at the hotel in order to attend this conference. But so there's two messages here. One is that, first off, name calling never helps anybody.
No.
You cannot drag anyone to your way of thinking, kicking and screaming. It's just not going to happen. You can call them all the names in the book. And to be honest with you, that's not going to change anybody's opinion or anybody's behavior. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
And secondly is that, but you have to be willing, even those that call others cheap, you have to be willing to spend more. Let me see you go out and spend more than on a $200 conference or on a $300, $400, $500. Go spend that $1,000 or join other associations where you're going to pick up knowledge, but it's going to cost you. Nothing is free in this.
Nothing's free. And I think the other element to that is, do you find value in it? You and I might look at the same conference and say there's something in it or there's nothing in it.
Right.
That's a decision you have to make. Like you mentioned, if I were your Profit First coach with the NSA conference, now thankfully I know you well enough that I probably would have said, this is going to pay off for you in the long run. Absolutely, go do it. But at the same time, I would have said, how long is it going to take you to recoup that investment? And those were things that as a Profit First coach, I would have asked you. But I go to all these things too. I mean, there's Disney Institute, there's QuickBooks does a conference every year, and I go to that. This year, I'll probably pass on it for a variety of reasons, one being financial investment.
Right.
It's not the most expensive one to go to, but once I add hotels into it and traveling, and I can actually drive there, but the hotels are $700-800 a night in some cases, because this is a big tech industry conference. This isn't Las Vegas where you can get a hotel for $29 a night. But you find these other types of events and conferences you go to. There's Michael Port. I mean, Michael Port's, I can't think of the name of it, Heroic Public Speaking.
Heroic Public Speaking. I went to that a couple of years ago.
I was lucky enough that as they were building that, him and Amy were building it, they went through an organization called Creative Live. I was fortunate enough to be part of that.
Wow.
And so I got it on the very down low cheap, but it's evolved very much since that time. So it was kind of not even the beta version. It was way pre-beta, if you will. And so I got to see that version of it. And just from that, I knew that what they're doing now for, I mean, I think it's almost 2,000 or 3,000 just to go and sit in the audience.
Well, no, it's over $1,000 if you get on an early bird, you can get under.
Early bird is a little bit.
But if you want to be a part of the one-on-one, and you get that stage time, then you're going to be spending $2,000 or $3,000. But having watched, been an audience member watching that process, I mean, it is well worth it. But again, it comes down to, okay, so. It's not a matter of not everybody's going to do it, and it's not because everybody's cheap. It's because not everybody can afford it at that moment to do that,
or not everybody sees the value in it. It's one of those two. Usually, is they can't afford it at the time, or they don't want it because they don't see a value in it.
Right,
and that's always been the hardest thing. I think, even just within our industry, those conferences, whether you can afford it or not, some of them just don't show the value sometimes to the prospective people that could be there.
There's got to be a why. Why should I attend this conference? Tell me what it is about this individual that's presenting that's going to bring value to my business. Why should I care about?
Don't bring Simon Sinek into this.
I love Simon Sinek. I would pay $1,000 to go see Simon Sinek, and which kind of brings us full circle, because we've got to wrap this up.
Yeah.
So which kind of brings us full circle in a way, because maybe sometimes instead of spending $2,000 on that piece of equipment that is going to wear out in a couple of years, or maybe 3 or 4 years, invest $2,000 in and learning something that will stay with you forever. See, the one thing that every DJ has in common is we all have equipment that, and if that's, if that's what couples think, if that's what clients think, that, all DJs are like because they just have equipment, nothing's going to differentiate you. But your knowledge, nobody can take that away from you, or say, or do the same thing. It just doesn't work that way.
Agreed. I mean, another way of putting that is we all have access to the same tools, and that includes the conference, whether it's the hardware, the conferences, the learning. We all have access to those tools in one way or another. How we invest in those tools and how we utilize those tools, if we've learned how to use them properly. A speaking class, how do we use our voice properly?
Right.
Maybe there are people that go to Scratch Academy and learn how to use the equipment properly. Those are two things that I could see someone investing in our industry and making a wild success of their career with it. Right. Absolutely. That is money well spent, as long as you're applying those skills that you learn from it. Don't just show up to a conference, whether you paid $50 for it or $5,000 for it and expect to have osmosis and walk away a genius, because it's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, and as we said earlier, there are no magic wands, no magic pills.
No,
I mean,
there's not.
It's status quo is always easiest. Go out and do something, challenge yourself, go out and do something that you've never done before. Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me tonight. It's been a great, and I'm going to have you back so we can get more into the educational part of Profit First. One more time for the viewers, how can they get a hold of you?
ProfitHoodAcademy.com, or find Profit Hood Academy on Facebook. You'll find me right there every day.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. And thank you to all the viewers for being with me this evening. We're going to be back the last Tuesday in August. I've already forgotten when I'm on the air. So we'll see you at the last Tuesday in August one more time for another episode. You have something you want to add?
I just want to say that Tuesday will be right after Mike is on. He'll be on the Monday before you. So that should be the 20th.
He's my opening act.
No. Well, yeah, the day before. But yeah, so, just a reminder that Mike will be on August 27th. For everybody that wants to be a part of Insiders, you're going to get a lot more out of it too.
Until then, folks, thanks again for tuning in for Ron Ruth Presents on DJNTV. We'll see you next time.